So in the current COVID-19 era, of course, we're not traveling to conferences or participating in networking events, and oftentimes that's where partnerships begin to take root. So we wanted to provide another exclusive opportunity for our US and Finnish alumni and friends to connect by providing another highly interactive online event with a small group of alumni and partners. A few weeks ago, we piloted this partnership speed dating concept, and that was really fun. We connected our US community with our Finnish community, and that went really well. And so today we want to continue this kind of experiment that we're trying with this online concept. So we want to thank you for joining us. We will today we'll hear from two of our Fulbright Finland alumni who will share their thoughts and experiences with inspiring partnership practices. And then we'll move to a breakout activity where everyone will have the opportunity to discuss challenges of developing transatlantic partnerships. And from there, we're hoping that that will be this launching pad into really brainstorming some inspiring practices that perhaps you have used, or just some ideas to try in the future. And then we'll conclude the webinar as a large group coming back together and sharing some of the ideas that were generated during the breakout activity. And since we have a small group today, feel free at any point to raise your hand or to use the chat function if you have a comment or question. You can find the raise hand function down in the participant tab. And before we welcome our alumni speakers to the stage, I would like to hand it over to the CEO of the Fulbright Finland Foundation, Terhi Mossa, for a few opening remarks. Terhi?
Thank you, Lisa, and a warm welcome to everyone, both here today and to those later through the recording. Our foundation's brand promise is Together Shaping the Future. And it was created so that every word in it is significant. But so is the order of the words. And there is a specific reason why the word together comes first. And it is because, in essence, everything that we do starts from collaboration and partnerships and is built on collaboration and partnerships. And this is also where all of you come in with the important work that you do at your institutions and in your professional networks. Partnerships are also essential for our larger goal, continuing to build the transatlantic relationship through exchange of talent and knowledge. So as you might have guessed, today's event is also funded by an important partnership. Through a study abroad engagement grant from USA Study Abroad within the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs of the US State Department. And I want to convey our sincere thank you to them, as well as to our friends at the US Embassy in Helsinki. So without further ado, thank you all so much for joining us. And I am really looking forward to learning from you and from your experiences.
Thank you, Terhi. And now I would like to introduce a few of my Fulbright Finland Foundation colleagues who are helping make this webinar come to life. So when I say your name, if you just want to give a little wave, Mirka helped conceptualize the event, and Mikkel is helping with the rating room, polls, breakout rooms, and he's just an overall Zoom tech guru. And then there's Maya, who will be overseeing event logistics and talking a little bit later on in the webinar. And then I think that there's a few other Fulbright Finland staff who are listening in. So before we go any further, I want to just bring up one housekeeping item. So in order to facilitate the activity that we have later on, and also the networking, let's take a moment to put on our virtual name tag. So follow these instructions with me. You can click on the participants tab at the bottom of your screen. And then you'll find your own name and click on More. And there you will see the option to rename. So you want to type in your first name and put the name of your organization, university, next to it. So actually your first and last name, because I think it will fit. So go ahead and put your first and last name and then your organization or your university. Great. And then if you put yourself in gallery view or you scroll through the photos, you can see where everyone is from. All right, good. So let's look who are with us today. To get a better feel for who is on the call, we're going to launch a poll, which you should see on your screen momentarily. Mikkel will launch the poll. So please take a moment to answer the question, what is your role? And of course, your answer will be anonymous. So if you just submit your answer. And Mikkel, you can let me know when everybody has put their answer in. Okay. And it looks like here are the results. So we have a lot of faculty and academics with us today, almost about 50%, half of you. And then we have some university administrators and staff and some other. So welcome. It's a really nice mix that we have. From the RSVP list, I saw that we have professors, department chairs, research funding specialists, and even international relations manager, just to name a few. So we have a really nice spread of participants from around the university community. And so now what we will go ahead and do is introduce you to our speakers. So our first alumni speaker is John Donnellan. He is an associate professor at New Jersey City University, and he has been to Finland twice, 2 awards. The first one was in 2017, 2018 as a Fulbright specialist. And then he came back in 2019, 20 to come to Erkko as a Fulbright TUAS Scholar Awardee. So John, I will give the stage to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that warm introduction. Also, a big shout out to Fulbright Finland for everything that you've done over the years. It's been really helpful to me as a professor to facilitate and work with the Finnish students. And great job, and thank you so much. I'd like to talk a little bit about from where I perceive the new reality of partnerships in this current environment. So let's talk a little bit about distance partnerships and where we are and where we need to be from my viewpoint. When I look at, again, I'm not only the professor or faculty, I'm also a chair. So enrollment is very, very large for me, as for most United States schools, because there's a direct correlation between enrollment and student enrollment and the ability to survive as an institution. It's a direct correlation. And I'm working with one of my Finnish partners, Dr. Janne Rosaf, on a white paper, and he's giving me a little bit more information on the EU. It's a little bit different model, but he's basically stating that there's also quite a bit of a decline in student mobility from 2019 figures, obviously because of the pandemic and no one can really move. So what we're trying to do is to think a little bit outside the model for a future state, more something that's a little bit more agile and resilient and creative. From a United States school standpoint, the model is kind of a little antiquated about our relationships, and we have to kind of review them to determine how do we exist in this environment, number one, to satisfy the students' learning experience, the internationalization of classrooms with the cultural experience that you get from working with universities in Finland, specifically where I've been, and try to make sure that there's, again, on the United States standpoint, we have to tie in some of the monetary aspect of it. So that's what my presentation will be a little bit about, looking back at things that we did while I was as Lisa stated, the Fulbright Finland awarded me two Fulbright awards, one a specialist and one a scholar. And the knowledge that I gained from that and the relationships that I gained with that, I'm able to share with my school for other relationships with other countries. So let me show you where we were. So back in 2017, I was given a specialist award, and I was able to go to Santa Kunta University down in Rama, and we also went to Pori. And there I met a really great professor. Her name was Marina Wickman, and we partnered together on an idea that when I was there on the ground in Finland, we worked towards trying to come up with a collaborative program that we could have a very simple program. United States classes work with Finnish classes on a project-based learning. And again, this was something I had never done before. And she had done it in the past with Germany. And I said, let's try it. And it worked beautifully. Those groups of 2 student groups right there, we were able to join them in teams. We had about 5 teams, half made up of Finnish students, half made up of USA students. And we were able to provide Port Rama with the information that they needed, whether or not they wanted to come to the United States for Baltimore and Jacksonville. So it was a great learning experience for me. It was a great relationship for my students. And it was purely virtual. They used all the virtual applications that were available to them to chat, to discuss things. And it was simple. I did not need an MOU, although I subsequently did get one with SAMP. I didn't need one at the time. And it worked into our existing classes. So I was like, I think I got something there. Then in 2018, next slide, please. Thank you. We continued it because it worked so beautifully in 2017. We had another virtual collaboration, project-based learning, with a Finnish beer company. And Lattelan, I do apologize. My Finnish isn't that good. So that last name, I do know why it's so long. I was educated in Finland on why names are so long, but I'm not going to try that because I don't want to damage the beautiful name. They were basically a beverage beer company. They wanted to know if they should come to the United States for selling a certain type of beer. So again, we put 2 teams together, very seamless. It was the thing about this, it was the ease of doing this. And the feedback I received from my students, and I can also reiterate from Marina's students, was that they love to see the differences in how each country works. The Finnish students were amazed at some of the things that the United States students did. And the US students were very, very much amazed at how the Finnish students work. So we were onto something here, that a collaboration, virtual, was very easy to do. And it still provided the knowledge of the culture to the students. Again, it cannot substitute for being in a country, sitting down, having the food, seeing the things, the sights, all of the other cultural experiences that you have. But this is a very simple process. So going forward to 2020, when I was in TUAS, which Turku, pre-pandemic, I was on the ground working with Finnish students. It was an in-class experience, and it was based on my scholar, this is the Fulbright scholar that I received, and I truly enjoyed it. Turku was a very great place to be, and it was a little bit different than Rama, but it was beautiful. And the knowledge that I gained to be able to, again, to bring that knowledge back to my US students in my global classrooms, from internationalization in the curriculum and changing the pedagogy slightly, I'm being very agile and I'm being creative on the way that I'm looking at what's going on. Again, pre-pandemic. Next slide, please. Then things changed. In March, it was decided that basically it was best for me to come back home. And you can see right off the bat the difference. You don't get to see many people's faces. And that's the same way as it is in the US. I worked with a professor, Erkko, in Turku, and we were able to work together on the continuation of the classes that were face-to-face in Finland, in Turku, when I was back home in the USA. Seamlessly done. But again, the students sometimes don't like to show their faces. And that's the same thing the way we have it in the USA too. We're not putting pressure on students to physically show themselves. If they wish, they can, and in this case, they didn't. So again, it was a very seamless thing. So the virtual continuation of school education, of that internationalization in our courses, right now is a very easy thing to do. And I'm continuing that in 2021 with Marina. Actually, this morning, I was talking to her through the internet, and we're working on a class for spring. That'll be an entrepreneurial class. So going forward, we're continuing this. I'm also working with my fellow faculty members to continue with it. And in addition to that, we have schools in Spain, Mexico, and France. I'll be in France again online in November teaching classes. So the internationalization does continue in a virtual environment. And this was out of working through the Fulbright Finland projects that I was assigned and worked with. This new way of doing things is going to be more prevalent, I believe, in the future, because mobility has changed, and we still need to give the students that cultural experience. Sharing the information between different countries is critical. And I think that this can be a very good way of doing things, a virtual experience. So that's my views. And I want to again thank Fulbright Finland for this opportunity. That's me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I think that you were ahead of the curve a little bit with the virtual collaboration from the get-go, and how that's kind of turned into these different opportunities to come to Finland and actually do classroom teaching and learning. So let's hear from another alum. Erkko Sointu is an assistant professor at the University of Eastern Finland, and he received a 2015-2016 Fulbright Finland travel grantee for research collaboration. And so now I will pass the microphone over to Erkko. And before I do that, though, I would like to encourage anyone, if anyone has any questions throughout these presentations, feel free to type in your question in the chat box, and then we'll get to that once they've both presented.
Okay, thank you very much, Leah, and thank you very much, Fulbright Finland, for inviting me this. It's a great honor to be here, and well, I come from joyful University of Eastern Finland, and I have had a privilege to be included to Fulbright, and particularly Fulbright Finland community, from several perspectives. And I will actually talk about with my next slide about my kind of a background with Fulbright, which there's a story. I was first time influenced and brainwashed basically to this wonderful community at 2010 when I was doing my doctoral studies, and my hosts, my supervisors, excuse me, decided to invite professor from United States, Michael H. Epstein, to Finland. And since then, I've been involved heavily, and that's been kind of a key changer, excuse me, for my research work and my studies when I was doctoral student and then as a researcher. I have also been using Fulbright as kind of a source to have excellent people and minds to Finland. At 2016, I had assistant professor Matthew Lambert from University of Nebraska, Lincoln, same as Professor Epstein. And at the moment, we are waiting to have Professor Christina Kutskachi from University of Nebraska, Omaha, to come here, but the current pandemic situation has changed a little bit this situation. I have also had as a kind of a grantee, my main grantee as a Fulbright has been 2015-16 travel grant, but I have had the opportunity to travel other points too, which have been very influential and kind of build up the understanding and meeting people. But the key point was 2015 as kind of getting the first grant. And I'm hoping that that's the first grant. I will have at some point second grant also. As a grantee, and during that time I already tried to start to use technology to help my travel to US, for example, in scheduling and planning, instead of going to use emails, but having some sort of a programs. For example, you can travel, you can book me.me. It's a very interesting web page where you can pre-book and set up calendars and stuff like that. And also, I've tried to make matchmaking for my colleagues at the University of Eastern Finland, and then when I visited in University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and at Omaha during my grantee, to see that people can start collaboration also with the distance. And all of these grants, and as a host perspective and as a grantee perspective, and then I have had a privilege to also train Fulbright Finland grantees, I think since 2016. They have always included online possibilities, and also finding additional sources for collaboration and other grants, which comes to the next steps. Actually, can I have a next slide, please? Excuse me. Which is the virtual era of Fulbright. I listed here two important aspects we need to consider, and what I say is the existing collaboration, and then the considerations for the future. This was kind of my putting together the topic virtual era of Fulbright. First of all, this how to continue existing collaboration. Well, for example, we have at the moment active waiting list session for the Professor Kristiina Kuttukacci from UNO to come here, but it has now been postponed at least once, and waiting to have the possibility for her to have here. However, when this pandemic started, we didn't stop our planning and didn't stop our working together. For example, we have had already one distance seminar from US to Finland regarding to STEM education, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, excuse me, topics, and it was very successful. And there has been talks which kind of opened to talks for new topics, such as using board games also online between two countries and so on. Our work has also continued sort of a one-to-one with Professor Kuttukacci, and also with my other colleagues I have met during my Fulbright and hosted previously. And for this, we need kind of a joint calls, joint objectives, and also revising the objectives currently due to the current situation, aiming to plan seminars, workshops, and joint expertise with technology and online between countries. And at this stage, we have developed even further our ideas, for example, to have the expertise from each side of collaboration, which is this vectors 2.0. There is this chicken rings vectors 2.0, which is the topic of Christine, which actually aims to bring new theoretical approaches for learning also to Finland. And this is very important because we are having this multidisciplinary research community at the University of Eastern Finland Digital Society, where we need new approaches also to face technological and current pandemic situation to overcome these challenges. We have also, based on Professor Kuttukacci's expertise, the Any STEM for You program, which is basically informal learning for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and how we could collaborate this more actively on distance. I really like John's idea of distance collaboration and work and seminars and classes, and I would like to talk with you about this, because these are great examples of how you can expand the collaboration and continue it. there are also high kind of interest at the moment for learning analytics at the both ends of the universities. They are having huge work regarding to kind of a social network analysis to generate algorithms for undergraduate student levels. And we have also, on the other hand, at UEF, large-scale Business Finland projects regarding to support self-regulation of students in basic education and higher education with learning analytics. And the kind of a final is higher education approaches on online teaching, which actually have developed just recently, this online teaching with flip twist idea, where we can use more of kind of a pre-videos to start the conversation and transfer the knowledge and ideas, and then really start working together. And main point of these are really that we should not continue and think new approaches, and really think it from the perspectives of online teaching, online learning, and particularly from the activation of participants. And for this we have lots of different tools, but we have to kind of have resources and also expertise to use them. So what I usually and often use are Padlet whiteboards, Mentimeters, and different types of activation tools for my teaching, with lots of videos and then discussion on online. So activating people to use their knowledge, what they have learned, and then showing them up. Now, the second point, what I just want to bring up is the collaboration, where we should perhaps move in the future. And I have kind of tried to build up my collaboration ever since my first visit, my second visit at the UNL 2014. And in 2015, where I spent time in both of the universities with my travel grant, the kind of a collaboration got into a deeper level, but that needs to kind of go into a next step, which I'm kind of had started to consider this blended mobility, or there are different words also how we can describe it, but my idea really is that that we have the mobility where we should of course embrace the mobility and possibilities when it's possible in location at US or in Finland. And that's I'm kind of keeping a positive mind in that sense, that the pandemic will end in some point, and we have this great opportunity to travel around the world again. But what we also need to kind of consider are different phases which help and serve for the working in location. And these are the phases for, before going there and then working after. And I think for these kind of a blended opportunities where we can use technology, make a kind of a meaningful plan for the sort of a visit, and then after the visit, and also kind of consider the sequencing in terms of that it serves the purpose and goals for the project, what we're thinking are very important. So what I really want to say is that I'm keeping a positive mind. I really love technology and different possibilities and John's and ideas, and the idea of this webinar, excuse me, but also don't stop planning and don't stop dreaming. Consider and do mobility, well, with different ways also in place. And for the next slide, thank you, Fulbright. That's kind of my story at the moment, with a little bit feverish ideas at the moment.
Erkko, thank you so much for joining us, especially since you have a little bit of the flu. We know that it's not corona, so that's good. But thank you for joining us. That's very kind of you to take time. So hopefully after this you can rest up. Both of you have some really interesting ideas, and especially they're so relevant at this time. because I think all of us have realized the potential actually of distance collaboration, that it is possible. And I really like, Erkko, what you're saying is, thinking of like a long-term collaboration and how you can have these moments that are online and remote, but then you have this face-to-face intensive time where you can really like focus in on doing, whatever it is, like John, like you were doing the in-class teaching, but yet now you're still doing that distance collaboration. So I think this is a really interesting way to think of collaboration in the future, and how to kind of marry this online distance collaboration with these potential mobility terms. So I really like this idea of blended mobility. It's a nice way of putting it. And we have a lot of different stories of our grantees who have done this. So there's one story of a Finnish and American academic who met at a conference, and then the US academic got a Fulbright Finland grant to come over. I think it was for about 6 months, and so worked with his partner here in Finland. And now there's a postdoc, one of the postdocs, the Finnish postdocs, who are going to the US to work with their research group. So it can be at all different levels as well. So thinking not just about yourself, but also thinking, who else in your department, or even the students that you're working with, the potential there for future collaboration as well. So I really like this idea. It's very expansive. I do want to just ask John, because Erkko, you had talked about how you first got exposed to Fulbright Finland because you were hosting somebody, right?
Yes, and as my supervisors of PhD were kind of a main applicants for the application to have a new specialist from US to Finland, but I was kind of exposed that way, which what I'm trying to say here is that it's extremely important that we have also the kind of a student perspective there, that the supervisors invite people and expose these scholars who are like Fulbright scholars, and like John is now visiting and having student collaboration, and we have this kind of a worked collaboration together, because that opens again new branches for the future.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know, I mean, in the future, if you expose this collaboration to students, who knows where it will go in the future, right? With the students and their career paths. So John, curious to hear from you. How did you find your partner? How did you make those connections initially?
It's quite amazing. I travel quite a bit, and I go to China up until this year every year. And when I was in China, when I was in, I think it was probably Shanghai, having lunch with the professor that I was with. He was from Zhejiang University. He had a collaboration with the professor from SAMC, and we just met her in this cafe. And I started talking to her, and she started talking to me. I'm like, why don't we try to figure something out here? And we started talking about collaboration, but Fulbright didn't come in the picture yet. So we were talking about collaboration. And then I did some research and I found Fulbright Finland. I'm like, oh my goodness, Fulbright Finland. I wonder if I can put together a Fulbright specialist for this particular assignment. So Marina worked with many of you over at Fulbright Finland, and the rest is history. I was brought over, but it was just serendipity almost, just meeting her in a cafe in Beijing, Shanghai. But before that, I've always been big on the student side of Fulbright. And in fact, this Friday, I'm part of a podcast with our Fulbright professor. We have an actual individual who handles all the Fulbrights at my school, NJCU. So I'm doing a Fulbright presentation with her towards students. And I'm going to chime in a little bit about my 2 experiences with Fulbright Finland, because we're a very friendly Fulbright school, NJCU, and we're always consistently pushing the envelope to get more students into the Fulbright program. And I'm going to also be talking about Fulbright Finland when I'm there to reach out, because I can get firsthand experience. So it was just magic how I found out about this. So you couldn't even plan this, how I found out about Fulbright Finland. But now that I know about it, I've been working with Fulbright Finland for, since 2017 on future projects going forward. So it's the networking, I found it, and it's a great opportunity, and telling people all over the place about it. So
yeah. And I think it's such a good point. I mean, you never know when you're going to stumble upon that really good partner.
exactly.
And once you find that partner, and on a Fulbright Finland, of course, you can come here, and then you really can meet future partners as well. So it's you never know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. But yeah, that's a really good point. So I wanted to highlight that actually. Do either of you have anything else that you would like to add at this point before we move forward into the breakout groups? Do you have any last words of wisdom or anything to share?
It was just great from my standpoint. And William's on the call. I can see him here. Even though William, we didn't get to present, I met William, and several time Fulbright award winner. So it was exciting meeting you and just listening to your story as well. So
And the network continues, doesn't it?
Network continues.
Yeah.